The National Desk, America's News, now.
Never had expectations that I would be having to bury my child over something as senseless as a carjacking.
Right now on the National Desk, crime crisis, how violent robberies and carjackings are reshaping life in big cities nationwide, and a state of emergency declared after a dramatic spike in overdose deaths, why some politicians are looking to end decriminalized drugs in Oregon. And the Fact Check team reveals which states have the biggest immigration backlogs and what's causing the surge. From the nation's capital, this is the National Desk, America's News Now. Thank you for joining us for this weekend edition. I am Dee Dee Gatton, and we begin with the fallout after revelations from the special counsel report about President Biden. Thursday, special counsel Robert Hur released his report on Biden's classified document case. He stated in the report, quote, "We have also considered that at trial, Mr. Biden would likely present himself to a jury, as he did during our interview of him, as a sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory." After the report was revealed, President Biden held a rare primetime news conference, taking questions from reporters.
Something the special counsel said in his report is that one of the reasons you were not charged is because, in his description, you are a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory.
I'm well-meaning, and I'm an elderly man, and I know what the hell I'm doing. I've been president. I put this country back on its feet. I don't need his recommendation. It's totally out.
How bad is your memory, and can you continue as president?
My memory is so bad I let you speak. That's
Do you feel your memory has gotten worse, Mr. President?
My memory is not good. My memory is fine. My memory, take a look at what I've done since I become president. None of you thought I could pass any of the things I got passed. How'd that happen? You know, I guess I just forgot what was going on.
Mr. President.
Voters have concerns about your age. How are you going to assuage them? And do you fear that this report is only going to fuel further concerns about your age?
Only by some of you.
Now, a growing chorus of lawmakers are calling into question Biden's fitness for office. Atra El-Nashar picks up our coverage on how this all started.
Findings of a year-long investigation led by special counsel Robert Hur into President Biden's handling of classified documents found at his Washington office and Wilmington, Delaware home laid out in a nearly 400-page report that may reveal just as much about the president's mental fitness as it does anything else. We've learned the documents included classified materials about Afghanistan from fall 2009, notes on the raid on Osama bin Laden, on foreign adversaries, and records from daily presidential briefings. Some of the documents found in his home were kept in a badly damaged box in the garage near a collapsed dog crate, a dog bed, potting soil. Last year, the president said this.
My Corvette's in a locked garage, okay? So it's not like you're sitting out in the street.
Hur, a Trump-nominated former U.S. attorney, concludes no criminal charges are warranted in this matter. We would reach the same conclusion even if Department of Justice policy did not foreclose criminal charges against a sitting president, and says evidence does not establish Biden's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Former President Trump, who faces dozens of criminal charges for classified documents found at Mar-a-Lago after he left office and alleged obstruction, says this has now proven to be a two-tiered system of justice and unconstitutional selective prosecution.
Special counsel acknowledged I cooperated completely. I did not throw up any roadblocks. I was especially pleased to see the special counsel make clear the stark differences between this case and Donald Trump. He has not only refused to return documents for many months, he also obstructed justice by enlisting others to destroy evidence and then lie about it.
But it's observations about the president's mental fitness that are likely to hurt him in the long run. Hur writes, at trial, Mr. Biden would likely present himself to a jury, as he did during our interview of him, as a sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. It would be difficult to convince a jury that they should convict him, by then a former president well into his 80s, of a serious felony that requires a mental state of willfulness. Hur describes moments when interviewing the president that he did not remember when he was vice president, forgetting on the first day of the interview when his term ended. He did not remember, even within several years, when his son Beau died. The White House reacting to notes about the president's memory. The White House counsel's office and the president's personal attorney say including that in the report was entirely superfluous, and they say it's common for witnesses to not recall years-old events. On Capitol Hill, I'm Atra El-Najjar for the National Desk, America's News Now.
For continuing coverage on this rapidly developing story, you can stay up to date on our website, thenationaldesk.com. While most areas of crime remain above pre-pandemic levels, there is data that shows improvement in many areas. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins joins us from Washington with a look at one big exception to the rule.
Former Trump official Mike Gill died this week after being shot by a man on a carjacking spree in Washington, D.C. The same suspect also carjacked, shot, and killed 35-year-old Alberto Vasquez Jr. that same day.
From what we've been told, he didn't resist. He gave the guys the keys.
His parents spoke with Sinclair's WJLA.
Never had expectations that I would be having to bury my child over something as senseless as a carjacking.
Carjackings in D.C. up 565% since 2019, one of the worst spikes in the country. Congressman Henry Cuellar carjacked at gunpoint less than a mile from the Capitol last October.
3 guys came out of nowhere and they pointed guns at me.
The Justice Department now vowing to dedicate more resources to the problem. Compared with pre-pandemic numbers, carjackings are up 93% across 10 big cities, tracked by the Council on Criminal Justice. In San Francisco, a carjacker caused this terrifying moment as they drove off a hill. And a dash cam recorded this attempted carjacking in Oakland.
No.
Data shows most carjackings are committed by juveniles. Sergeant Betsy Smith with the National Police Association says that's why carjackings are going up while other types of crime are improving.
And they are not being punished as adults. And of course, if they don't get punished, they're going to keep committing the crimes.
Donald Trump calling D.C. a crime fest and calling for the federal government to take over the city. Meanwhile, in a reversal, D.C. City Council is working on new, tougher on-crime laws. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins.
A crime alert after a woman was mugged. The incident all caught on camera, and it's not easy to watch. A man on a moped grabbed a woman's purse and dragged the 62-year-old down a sidewalk in Brooklyn. New York City police arrested 2 men who were allegedly part of a migrant gang. The woman was badly bruised but is okay. A disturbing case out of Seattle where a 13-year-old girl and a 15-year-old boy facing several felony charges accused of intentionally running over pedestrians with stolen vehicles. Police were tipped off about the crimes through viral video on social media. The National Desk, Hannah Knowles, reports from Seattle.
The disturbing video recorded by 2 teens is now evidence for a judge who will soon determine the fate of a 13-year-old girl and a 15-year-old boy.
To see this level of injury without death, regardless of what your age is, if you're accused of allegations that are this serious, you've got to go before a judge.
Casey McNerthney with the King County Prosecuting Attorney's Office tells me the details of what happened to the 2 victims played a major role in the charges.
These are very serious crimes, and when you read the documents and you see the amount of information that was sent to us by police investigators, this is the appropriate next step.
According to court documents, the pair is facing a slew of felony charges, including second-degree assault, possession of a stolen vehicle, and hit-and-run charges.
When you look at that charge and say, assault with a deadly weapon, what's the deadly weapon? And the deadly weapon is the car.
The teens were arrested on Thursday, February 1st, after months of investigation into the crashes that happened on Aurora Avenue North in November. Police were able to connect the teens to the videos shared by Seattle police after a tip from the Everett Police Department that 2 witnesses saw the videos and knew the teens involved.
A case like this is unusual, but I think that people can be reassured by the steps that the prosecutor's office are taking and will continue to take in this case, these cases going forward.
Documents, a detective did state he had several interactions with a 15-year-old who they believe was driving the stolen vehicles. Dozens of New York City government employees under arrest after a major bust. The Justice Department charged 70 current and former employees with New York City's Housing Authority, alleging they accepted more than $2 million in cash bribes from contractors in exchange for $13 million worth of contracts. Lawmakers say you can see the signs of border security failures across the country. ICE agents arrested an illegal migrant and child rapist in Massachusetts who was previously deported in 2006 after a child rape conviction in Delaware. And we are getting growing reports of violent crime in large cities committed by migrants. The National Desk, Christine Frizzell, reports on the migrant crime spree, and we do want to warn you that some of these images may be hard to watch.
Police say the victims are often women, like the one seen in this horrific video, being dragged by migrants on a moped. Police say it's one incident in a much larger phone-snatching criminal enterprise in which suspect Victor Parra sends out WhatsApp messages detailing what types of cell phones he's looking for.
These thieves would ride up behind their victims on the sidewalk, steal their property, and then make their getaway.
Chief Detective Joe Kenny says most of those taking part live in New York City's migrant shelter system and make hundreds of dollars per stolen phone. Several suspects involved were arrested Monday as law enforcement faces new challenges in this wave of migrant crime.
They're essentially ghost criminals. No criminal history, no photos, no cell phone, no social media. Sometimes we're even unclear on a name or a date of birth.
Another major arrest Monday of suspects involved in this video of New York City police officers assaulted in Times Square. The suspects, also migrants, were initially arrested and then set free without bail, to the shock of many.
A sanctuary city should not mean protecting criminals.
And a 2-week operation led by Immigration and Customs Enforcement that just wrapped up led to the arrest of 171 undocumented migrants with previous criminal charges and convictions, what former CBP head Mark Morgan calls the tip of the iceberg.
In the past 36 months, CBP has encountered over 90,000 criminals trying to illegally enter our border, including murderers, rapists, pedophiles, aggravated felons, and gang members.
Of course, the vast majority of migrants are not committing crimes and make the dangerous journey to get here out of fear and desperation. But their ability to be let in and remain in the country is now at the center of debate in Washington and nationwide. I'm Christine Frizzell reporting.
The immigration court backlog has grown to over 3 million cases, a rise from 1.9 million cases in September 2022, and setting a new record. I'm with Connor from the Fact Check team. And Connor, which states have the largest backlog?
Didi, according to research from Syracuse University, Florida has the most at over 480,000 cases, and then Texas isn't too far behind. Together, those two states make up nearly a third of the cases in the country, and California, New York, and Illinois are also at the top of the list. But this really puts things in perspective. There are now more immigrants with a pending case in the U.S. than the population of Chicago, which is our third largest city.
And certainly a bunch of factors to discuss, but what does your research indicate is behind this backlog?
Well, one likely factor is there's a number of record migrants crossing the border. U.S. Customs and Border Protection recorded nearly 2.5 million encounters last year. Then another issue is resources. We currently have 682 immigration judges, and the problem is each of them have 4,500 pending cases. Now, to address this, the Biden administration has hired more judges and is requesting 375 immigration judge teams in its 2024 budget request.
How long has this been going on?
Well, it's definitely not a new issue, Didi. The immigration court system has been dealing with backlog for years, but the caseload started getting significantly worse in 2019 and 2020. And for context, in December of 2016, there was a backlog of just under 534,000. By December of 2019, it was over 1 million. And by December of 2022, it was over 2 million.
Interesting comparison. Connor, thank you. And for more on this Fact Check team topic, including links to their sources, scan the QR code on your screen or visit thenationaldesk.com. Still ahead here, the border crisis. The National Desk travels to the Rio Grande, where Texas is battling the federal government for the right to protect their borders. There is an epic battle in Texas over whether states have the right to protect their own borders from illegal foreigners entering when the federal government won't do it. Full Measures' Cheryl Atkinson reports from Eagle Pass, Texas.
The local sheriff, Maverick County's Tom Schmerber, agrees to get us into the restricted area bordering the Rio Grande. Barbed wire put up by the state, tattered clothes mark a popular route.
Trump years, I know that he kept them on the other side of Mexico, and he stopped. It was stopped. Then when this administration came in, it's like they opened the borders. Now we have this new president. She's going to open the doors and open the arms, and they started crossing.
Hola, bienvenido. ¿De dónde es? This group tells us they've just come in from Honduras and Venezuela. If you were to catch somebody who had come into the U.S. illegally, are you allowed to arrest them, hold them, send them back?
No, not now, not right now.
Next, we meet up with Sergeant Rennie Cordova from the Texas Department of Public Safety. And you've been here 20 years. How would you characterize today's situation over time?
1,000% difference. From when I first got here, you would never, ever see this many people crossing the river.
Up the river a ways, Cordova shows us new state additions since the Biden surge. Besides coils of barbed wire, new open spaces where there used to be brush.
Now, it makes it a little bit more difficult for them to, they have no place to hide here.
So all the space was cleared. How long ago?
It's been within the past year and a half at least.
And then this is new.
Yes, the anti-climbing fence, in order to make it much harder for them not just to get underneath the wire, but they'll just look at it and see that it's more complicated now.
The state paid for this, not the federal government.
Yes. Everything that we have here along the border, everything's state funded.
But this dynamic is heading for a dramatic shift March 5th. A new Texas law will make illegal immigration a state crime. Local police will be able to make arrests rather than having to turn people over to Border Patrol, and the courts can order them back to Mexico. What are your thoughts as to what the state is trying to do when the federal government is not doing? Does the state have a right to secure its own border?
Well, I think basically what the governor's trying to do is he's trying to protect the citizens because we're being invaded, basically, here. And this is actually the back door into the United States.
The Justice Department and other advocates for illegal immigrants are suing Texas over the new law that will let local police arrest, saying the law violates the Constitution. For Full Measure, I'm Cheryl Atkinson.
Up next here on the National Desk, alarming bust. A routine traffic stop in Florida leads to one of the biggest drug busts in the community's history. The National Desk team of reporters is bringing you the headlines from coast to coast. We're taking the pulse of America, from a massive meth bust during a routine traffic stop in Florida to drivers hit hard by soaring auto insurance rates in Alabama. We're taking the pulse of America. But we start with flooding concerns after days of relentless rain in California.
We don't want street flooding. So, if you see a blocked storm drain or you're aware that it's blocked, give us a call.
Street flooding, traffic signal outages, and downed trees are all too common to experience after a storm system like this. That is why the city of Bakersfield is trying to get on top of all the above through their various services. While many of these hazards happen in busy intersections, Joe Conroy with the city of Bakersfield says there may not be as many people reporting these incidents as you think. So the sooner you contact the city, the faster their response.
It doesn't hurt to report it and let us know. Make sure that a light is out, whether it's completely powered off or if it's in a red flash status.
Longtime Central Valley local says his building in downtown on 30th and F Street has been dealing with a flooded intersection that has needed repairs. While the city has since fixed the intersection, he is hoping the next round of weather is a little kinder to the downtown district.
Just pray and hope that everything comes out all right.
My insurance has gone up about $100.
Bankrate's latest report shows U.S. drivers are seeing an average 26% increase on the cost of auto insurance. A big factor in this is inflation, but that's not all.
While inflation is touching all wage sectors and all good sectors, the thing that's happening in auto insurance that's really fascinating is that cars are becoming more expensive with all the gizmos and gadgets and hybrid and all those other things that go into new cars. Well, if those cars are more expensive and they get in wrecks, that's more that insurance companies are liable for, and so that has to be passed on to the consumer.
Clay Ingram with AAA of Alabama says distracted driving and crashes also contribute to the increase.
We're not really doing a good job of getting our crash rates down with the amount of distracted driving that's going on out there on a daily basis. We're still having far too many crashes.
25-year-old Douglas Thompson is now in custody after officers say they found trafficking amounts of narcotics in the back of his car. The Texas man was flagged down by Port St. Lucie police for having a tail light out and swerving on the road.
The suspect stepped out of the vehicle. During a search, he admitted that, number one, the car was not his, and then there was a bag in the back that didn't belong to him, belonged to a friend, and that it had some cannabis inside.
After searching the car, officers pulled out much more than that. Along with roughly 20 grams of cannabis, police discovered more than a dozen THC wax sheets, nearly 50 containers of THC gummies, and 17 vacuum-sealed bags filled with a whopping 64 pounds worth of powdered methamphetamine.
It's about the size of one of my golden doodles, so it's a pretty large amount of methamphetamine, if in fact it does come back and all confirmed positive for that.
Police Chief Richard Del Toro says that's one of the largest, if not the largest, meth bust they've ever had.
New information surrounding the crash of an Osprey aircraft that killed 8 U.S. service members off Japan's coast. The Pentagon now believes it has identified the mechanical failure that led to the crash, but declined to say what the failure was. November's deadly crash led to a rare military-wide grounding of all Osprey helicopters. The Pentagon's Joint Safety Council now working to return the aircraft back into service. Bolts meant to secure a door panel that blew off during an Alaska Airlines flight last month were not just loose, but missing. That's according to a preliminary report from the National Transportation Safety Board. It says the door panel was removed at a Boeing facility to make repairs and may have been reinstalled without the 4 key bolts. It comes as the Federal Aviation Administration's top official appeared before House lawmakers to address Boeing's quality control concerns.
Going forward, we will have more boots on the ground, closely scrutinizing and monitoring production and manufacturing activities.
The agency is currently conducting a weeks-long audit of Boeing's manufacturing processes. Whitaker says the company will be held accountable for any potential safety violations. Straight ahead here on the National Desk, America's News Now. Massive boost, how the IRS plans on using increased funding thanks to the Biden administration and what it could mean for your wallet. You're watching the National Desk, America's News Now. You can catch us live weekdays from 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. and 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern Time, and anytime online at thenationaldesk.com. We'll be right back.
The National Desk, America's News Now.
I may have lost in court, but I won where it matters the most because I saved my little boy.
Coming up next on the National Desk, America's News Now. A father's fight. We hear from a man who lost custody of his child after disagreeing with his son's gender transition. CEOs testify, heads of Big Pharma questioned by the Senate over high prices of prescriptions. And financial woes. The fact-check team examines Gen Z's money problems and how some are changing their spending habits to keep up. From the nation's capital, this is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Dee Dee Gatton, and we begin with a case catching national attention. A New York father says he lost custody over a disagreement with his son's gender transition. The National Desk, Janae Bowen, shows us how gender dysmorphia is handled in child custody battles.
Dennis Hannon of New York says a court stripped him of custody after he objected to his son's gender transition.
I was framed as a bigot. I was framed as I was intolerant.
Hannon says this goes back to his divorce, where accusations of abuse led to his ex-wife getting sole custody of their son. When their child was 5, Hannon learned that while with his mom, the child had a new name, was seeing a gender therapist, and was being recommended as a candidate for puberty-blocking drugs. This despite never being diagnosed with gender dysphoria.
And not once was I ever invited to be a part of his treatment.
It's something that comes up, but it comes to a medical decision, which falls under legal custody. And typically that's something that both parents want to weigh in on because the consequences are so significant.
Family attorney Elizabeth Douglas of New York says Hannon's lack of knowledge of the alleged transition is a huge deviation from the rights of a legal custodian. However, she says the custody status at the time may have played a role. There are similar cases across the country. According to the New York Post, a Texas father claims his ex-wife moved to California to, quote, chemically castrate their 9-year-old son. But Douglas says a parent not wanting their child to transition will not cause someone to lose custody.
Typically, the reason why rights could be altered, not necessarily taken away, is because one parent displayed something that was not in the best interest of the child.
With help from a lawyer, Hannon prevented his son from getting puberty blockers. A court later ruled against him, demanding he pay for the child's $145 per session gender therapy. Hannon's case worked its way to the New York Supreme Court, where he lost medical authority and custody of his son, only being allowed to see him occasionally during the week and on alternating weekends. In this complicated case, the court's reason for ruling this way is not publicly available.
I may have lost in court, but I won where it matters the most because I saved my little boy.
The mom in this case is Amy Hannon. Now, she told the New York Post she didn't want to get into the specifics about the case, but said, quote, there are two sides to every story. She went on to say, it's the child that's important here. In Washington, Janae Bowens.
In Iowa, a new push that could change state laws to recognize the unborn. Lawmakers advanced a bill that would hand out a life sentence to anyone who terminates a pregnancy without consent from the pregnant mother.
The bill acknowledges quite clearly what we all know. Life begins at the moment of conception. I don't think that's in dispute. This bill deals with the protection of that life, and rightly so. The term human pregnancy is convenient if you're pursuing a pro-abortion agenda, because you don't have to realize that truth that life begins at the moment of conception, and what we're talking about is an unborn child.
Right now, it's a 25-year sentence in Class B felony to end a pregnancy without the mother's consent. According to the bill, it would change the penalty to a Class A felony, so causing death or injury to an unborn baby would be on par with first-degree murder. Alabama leading the charge to ban experimental sex change procedures on children. Attorney General Steve Marshall joined Jan Jeffcoat to discuss.
Tell us about this amicus brief that you filed and why it is so important. Yeah, this is just one of many efforts that Alabama's helped lead across the country to make sure that we're standing on behalf of Alabama's kids. You know, Kentucky and Tennessee passed a law very similar to Alabama, making sure that their children were not experiments in this effort to affirm children in an improper way. And what we've seen is that the appellate courts now are ruling in our favor and ruling on behalf of America's kids. We do not believe this case is ripe yet for Supreme Court review, and looking forward to not only what Alabama's doing to develop a record to show the fallacy of this care that WPATH is recommending, but also to be able to expose the myths and the lies that have existed around gender-affirming care for quite some time.
Speaking of WPATH, I read the brief, which essentially states the federal government's endorsing transgender advocacy groups like the World Professional Association for Transgender Health to force states essentially to give sex change hormone drugs and allow surgeries for children and young teens. Tell us more about this. Why? Why is this particular organization the authority on this for the federal government?
Yeah, it's a great question because clearly they are simply another arm of the left in advancing a radical gender ideology. What we have seen and what we will ultimately be able to prove, this is a group that suppresses dissent, that they rely upon very limited science-based research, and clearly are not a trustworthy medical organization, but instead an advocacy group for the left. We see individuals like Admiral Levine and his interaction with them. I think one of the things that our trial will ultimately do is to be able to expose really the true nature of WPATH outside of a medical organization. But most importantly, we're going to be able to demonstrate that the science supports what we've said all along, is that this is harming our kids, not helping them, and is in fact the United States enacting the failed European experiment that most countries now have walked away from.
Your state's been very successful in blocking enforcement of any kinds of transgender treatments in children and young teens. Tell us about the victory you received in yet another federal appellate court ruling just last month.
Yeah, we are very pleased that the 11th Circuit is now going to allow Alabama's Vulnerable Child Act to be in place to make sure that we're not harming kids by off-label use of medication, sterilizing kids in the future, but instead allowing for appropriate means to deal with the issue of gender dysphoria. But again, Alabama is just one of many states that's had these victories lately. We believe clearly that the trend is on our side, and who benefits from that are America's kids and our country, and that's the most exciting thing about what we're doing.
At least 22 states have enacted laws restricting or banning irreversible transgender treatments and procedures for minors. In your state, how is this being enforced? And what's the consequence for doctors who do not follow the rule of law?
Yeah, for us, it's a criminal misconduct to the extent that a doctor prescribes off-label medication for the purpose of treating gender dysphoria, then we have the ability to engage in a criminal prosecution. Thus far, we've not had to do it. We have seen that the respective medical organizations in our state that were involved in that type of care have pulled back, and we expect them to follow the law. And I think that's consistent with what we've seen across the country as more and more states have seen that we need to be able to step up and protect kids. This is child abuse, and we need to make sure that we're protecting America's kids.
Turning to your money, President Biden's massive funding increase to the IRS expected to drain hundreds of billions more dollars from Americans than previously expected. A new report from the Treasury Department reveals the agency will collect an extra $561 billion over the next 10 years as a result of increased enforcement. House Ways and Means Committee Chair Jason Smith warned the agency's increased funding will lead to hundreds of thousands of additional audits for taxpayers making less than $75,000 per year. While getting grilled on Capitol Hill, CEOs of three of the biggest pharmaceutical companies try to explain why Americans pay so much more for prescription drugs than patients in other countries. The National Desk, Atra El-Nashar, has more.
For too many Americans, the drugs prescribed to them by their doctor are out of reach.
The cost of prescription drugs, it's like a bag of heavy rocks.
The CEOs of Merck, Johnson & Johnson, and Bristol-Myers Squibb appearing before senators Thursday to defend their prices and why Americans pay so much more than other wealthy nations for the same drugs.
Johnson & Johnson charges Americans with arthritis $79,000 for Cedar, when that same exact product can be purchased for just $20,000 in Canada.
Do you agree that the United States is paying for innovation for the rest of the world?
Yeah, that seems pretty much it.
According to CDC research published last summer, more than 8% of adults 18 to 64 skipped their necessary prescribed medication because of the cost. Those in fair or poor health and those with disabilities were about 3 times more likely to go without.
We're focusing on prices today, but we also need to think about innovation as a way to fix the problem.
Lawmakers of both parties grilling the CEOs for spending more on stock buybacks and dividends than developing new drugs. What the solution is, that's where Congress is split.
What do you say to your constituents who cannot afford their prescription drugs?
I totally agree with that. But the one thing that we got to understand, it takes a lot of money to come up with new drugs.
We need to ramp up the number of drugs that are being negotiated. We need to make sure that Medicare is getting a fair price.
Drug makers blame pharmacy benefit managers, or PBMs, who serve as intermediaries between insurance, pharmacies, and pharmaceutical companies, calling them out in ads like this.
I don't make as much money off this one. Hope you feel better.
Both sides spent tens of millions of dollars last year lobbying Congress, according to public filings.
I think the healthcare lobbies are the strongest back home in our own states and out here in D.C.
It's done little to help the 1 in 4 Americans who, according to Kaiser Family Foundation, say it's difficult to afford their medication. On Capitol Hill, I'm Atrell Nishar reporting.
Years of high interest rates and record costs also catching up with you. Delinquency rates on credit cards and auto loans spiked to their highest level since the Great Recession. The Federal Reserve Bank of New York reports Americans owe a record $1.13 trillion on their credit cards. Higher prices forcing Americans to pull out their credit cards after draining their savings. There are nearly 70 million Gen Zs, also known as Zoomers or post-millennials in the U.S., making up 20% of the population. I'm with Courtney from the Fact Check team, and Gen Z is generally defined, Courtney, as the generation born between 1996 and 2012. How are they doing financially?
They aren't doing so great, Dee Dee. According to a new survey from Wallet Hub, Gen Z is the least financially confident generation, with more than 1 in 4 saying they aren't confident about their financial knowledge or their skills.
Interesting, and why is that?
There are a few reasons here, like over 34% of Gen Zs say their parents didn't set a good financial example, which is higher than any other generation. And a third don't have a budget for managing their monthly expenses.
And what about income? Does that play a role?
I'm really glad you brought that up because wages aren't really keeping up with the market. Recent research by the company Self Financial found that college graduate salaries have decreased more than 10% over the last 4 decades after adjusting for inflation. In other words, today's college grads are making almost $10,000 less than their parents did.
Let's talk about something that relates to a lot of us, spending, as things are getting more expensive.
They definitely are. Some good news, though. Bank of America found that a majority of Gen Zs are changing their spending habits to keep up with those higher prices. For example, almost half say they started cooking at home more often, 40% spent less on clothes, and a third limited grocery spending to just the essentials.
All good strategies, too. All right, right. Courtney, thank you. For more on this Fact Check team topic, including links to their sources, scan that QR code on your screen or visit thenationaldesk.com. So to come, our team of correspondents breaks down this week in Washington, including the fallout of the special counsel's report on President Biden's mishandling of classified documents.
And welcome back. Our Washington Bureau covers the nation's capital every day to report on the important issues facing the country and how they impact you. The Bureau's correspondents are here to share their insights on the stories they've been covering. The Supreme Court heard arguments on Thursday on whether states can ban Donald Trump from the ballot over his role in the January 6th riot at the U.S. Capitol. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins, what's the chatter as we wait for the court to decide this case?
So, Steve, this centers around the state of Colorado ruling that they're allowed to pull Donald Trump from the ballot, saying he violated the 14th Amendment's insurrection clause on January 6th. So this is the case that made it all the way up to the Supreme Court. And right now, the chatter coming after the oral arguments that we heard today, it's looking like the court will probably side in Trump's favor. That has to do with the questions that the justices were asking the lawyers. And they were some pretty tough questions of both sides, both the conservative justices and the liberal justices, really poking holes in this entire argument. The question, though, Steve, now is how long it's going to take the court to hand down a decision. In big cases like this, they can sometimes take months. Legal experts think it'll be a little quicker than that. We may get something by the end of the month, possibly. The state of Colorado is asking for it by February 11th because they mail out their ballots on February 12th. We probably won't get one that soon, but we could possibly learn something in the next coming weeks.
And we'll keep watching that very closely. Meanwhile, national correspondent Atra El-Nashar, a special counsel's report on President Biden's mishandling of classified documents, that's out. What's the fallout of that investigation?
Yeah, well, Steve, we learned more about President Biden's mental fitness as we did anything else. Now, the meat and potatoes of this report, the president willfully retained documents, according to special counsel Robert Hur, but he will not face any criminal charges, though Hur said they would have reached that conclusion even if it wasn't the Department of Justice's policy that sitting presidents cannot be charged. Now, some of the documents, Hur says, could have been genuinely misplaced, that he wasn't aware of them, but overall he did willfully retain these documents, according to the report. And some of the documents included information about the raid on Osama bin Laden, notes from meetings in the Situation Room with then President Obama. So mostly documents related to foreign policy. They were found in his garage, like the images we saw in the indictment against former President Trump for his handling of classified documents. There are pictures in this report as well. Former President Trump, of course, coming out and saying that it's a two-tiered system of justice. But I should note, Hur is a U.S. attorney that was appointed by former President Trump. Now, on to what it says about President Biden's memory and mental fitness. Hur wrote that he thinks in a trial that jurors would see the president as a sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. He says in his interviews with the president, he had difficulty remembering when his term as vice president ended, and also difficulty remembering when his son Beau died. Now, this is going to be tricky for the White House, for the Biden-Harris campaign. As we know, many voters are already very concerned about the president's ability to serve a second term.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of fallout, not only politically for President Biden, but Donald Trump as he goes through the courts with his case. We'll be hearing a lot, I think, about this in the coming months. And as the migrant crisis continues, cities and states that have declared themselves sanctuaries continue struggling to deal with an influx of migrants. National correspondent Christine Frizzell, what's the latest there?
Yeah, this past week brought a new sort of alarming layer in the migrant crisis, Steve. It brought the idea that migrants are now overwhelmingly, not the majority of them, but there are issues with crime in New York City. The whole world has now seen that video of migrants beating up cops in Times Square. Well, a lot of people were alarmed to learn that most of them were arrested and then let go without bail. They had to rearrest them. But even more news came this past week that there was a lot of migrants involved in what police called a cell phone snatching criminal enterprise. This is, one guy putting out a message saying, these are the phones I'm looking for. And you had, dozens of migrants going and robbing people on the streets, mostly women. This horrific video of a woman being dragged by migrants on a moped. So you've got these cities who years ago, when they passed these sanctuary laws, they're saying, we want to help these people. We want to make sure that anyone who comes to our city is clothed and fed. But now they're saying, the sanctuary laws are not to protect criminals. So a lot of new questions being raised. This, as the debate continues as to, these migrants coming into our country, should they be let in? Should they be allowed to stay? Congress was working on some answers to that, and now we know that what they came up with is likely sort of done with.
And as some resentment grows among residents, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out at the ballot box this fall. We'll be watching very, very closely. Christine, Atra, Kayla, thank you all for your great reporting, and thanks for your hard work. Back to you.
Coming up next here on the National Desk, carjacking crisis. Residents tired of the chaos in their neighborhood after the latest crime spree leading to several teen arrests. This is the National Desk, America's News Now. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering issues that matter to you. From a chaotic police chase in North Carolina to Pennsylvania parents questioning the district's response after a school threat. We're taking the pulse of America, but we start with multiple teens arrested after a string of armed carjackings in Washington state.
It was about 9 p.m. on a Sunday night. Linwood police got a call about an armed robbery at the AMC Theater at Alderwood Mall.
When they arrived, they learned that multiple subjects had arrived on site in a stolen vehicle. They robbed 2 victims at gunpoint and took their 2 cars.
Police say the stolen cars were later located by the Snohomish County Sheriff's Office near this neighborhood along Larch Way, where the incident ended.
I looked out the window and I saw a whole bunch of police cars, maybe 5 or more, down this way.
The Snohomish County Sheriff's Office says 4 juveniles, including 2 14-year-olds, were arrested inside one of the stolen vehicles. The other stolen vehicle was found unoccupied.
It is getting so wild out there. It is really getting wild. Linwood used to be so quiet, such a quiet neighborhood, but it's getting pretty crazy.
Officials with the Lexington Police Department say Zachary Plowman shot 3 victims on Virginia Drive, then sped off in a car, then left it abandoned. Davidson County Sheriff Richie Simmons says Plowman found his way here at the Community Fellowship Monrovian Church on Welcome Arcadia Road, where he broke in and spent the night.
While he spent the night there, when the pastor and his wife came in to open up the church for Sunday services, he actually kidnapped both of them and hijacked their car by knife point.
Simmons says Plowman eventually let them out at the intersection of City Lake Road and Sink Road before driving another mile on JD Essex Road, then abandoned the car, taking off on foot in a wooded area.
The gentleman took off. He had his canine exit the car, and our dog and the deputy were able to secure the suspect.
Wednesday, January 31st, families in the Mountain View Middle School got an email from the assistant superintendent reading in part, quote,
We want to make you aware that this morning it was brought to the attention of the building administration that a student indicated a threat of violence to the school today. It goes on to say, quote, the individual who made the threat was immediately identified and the threat has been deemed not credible. By the time you got the email from the school, rumors had been circulating and your son had already texted you.
Correct.
So what's going through your head?
It was scary.
Friday, February 2nd, a second email to families, this time reiterating that law enforcement deemed the threat not credible and adding, quote, the individual who made the threat was not in possession of any weapon, including a gun. What do you need?
I need to know that when our kids walk through that school right now, with this investigation going on, what have they implemented to keep our children safe?
Still ahead here, massive Honda recall. Nearly 1 million vehicles recalled. Find out why and what to do if you're on the list. Finally here on the National Desk, a major Honda recall due to a faulty airbag sensor that could cause the front passenger airbags to inflate when they're not supposed to. This impacts more than 750,000 Honda Pilots, Accords, Civic sedans, HRVs, and Odyssey models made between 2020 and 2022. So far, Honda says it hasn't received any reports of injuries due to the issue. Dealers will replace the seat sensors at no cost to owners. Notifications will start going out by the middle of March. And that's going to do it for us on the weekend edition of the National Desk, America's News Now. Don't forget, you can catch us live from 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. and 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern Time. Check your local listings. You can also watch us online and catch up with the latest headlines on thenationaldesk.com. Thanks for watching the weekend edition of the National Desk. I'm Dee Dee Gatton, and from all of us here, have a great week.